What's up everybody, welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's #2 economy. My name is Tony, let's jump in. Okay, happy Friday everybody. First, a little piece of housekeeping. Normally I release a video on Saturday and then take Sunday off, but because of work commitments this weekend, I'm going to switch these days around. So tomorrow I will not release a video on Saturday, but then I will release a video on Sunday. I hope this change for this weekend only is not too disruptive for everybody. Okay, over the last 24 hours, it seems that the cautious optimism expressed in yesterday's video towards the lockdown situation in Shanghai may have been premature, showing that the situation on the ground is truly evolving all the time. On Thursday, yesterday, increasingly stressed local officials announced that Shanghai will carry out 9 major actions to clear community-level transmissions, which includes more lockdowns, testing and quarantining. Tough restrictions will remain in place for now, even in districts which managed to cut COVID-19 transmissions to 0 as the number of cases outside quarantined areas across the city rose again. These are strong signs that authorities do not believe the situation is turning a corner at all. Indeed, the words and actions of officials appear increasingly anxious. And why wouldn't they be? The political weight of the central government is on one shoulder, while the anger, frustration, and criticism of China's most well-educated, wealthy, and cosmopolitan residents, the people of Shanghai, sits on the other shoulder. Deaths and patients in critical condition in Shanghai are increasing too. At a briefing yesterday, an official with the city's health commission said that the number of patients in severe or critical condition has more than tripled as of Wednesday over the previous day. Local financial media is reporting today too that Shanghai's market watchdog has pledged to tighten oversight of pandemic supplies after residents complained that rotten food was being distributed by the government. Quote, multiple residents interviewed by Caixin complained about the quality of government-distributed food. Some said that they had received rotten meat and vegetables, while others were concerned that they had never heard of some of the brands of food they received. End quote. Okay, next up, at the annual Boao Asia Forum, General Secretary Xi Jinping, in a video speech, proposed a, quote, global security initiative, end quote, a new concept which some commentators have argued is yet another marker in the PRC's efforts to remake the international order in a way in which China is more central and the US role more diminished. State media writes on the new proposal today, quote, the Global Security Initiative is a new proposal, but its contents are not unfamiliar to us, as these are the principles and concepts China has always practiced and proposed on building shared, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. End quote. During the video speech, the General Secretary, Xi Jinping, said that the world should respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries, while paying attention to the, quote, legitimate security concerns, end quote, of all. Now, we have heard this legitimate security concern statement before. This is what the People's Republic of China Foreign Ministry used to justify the Russian invasion of Ukraine, describing Moscow's interests in the region at the beginning of the invasion period as legitimate security concerns. During the speech, the General Secretary also expressed, quote, we should uphold the principle of indivisibility of security, end quote. So what does this mean? Well, the principle of indivisible security is the idea that no country can strengthen its own security at the expense of others. The idea has developed in some European agreements, and Russia has been pointing to this concept or this idea in its talks over Ukraine. The People's Republic of China is attached to the idea too. Quote, if China deems actions by US and its allies on Taiwan or the South China Sea as disregarding its security concerns, it could invoke the concept of indivisible security to claim the moral high ground in retaliation. End quote. Well, it certainly could invoke the concept. How successful it would be in the eyes of many in the West is another matter. Soon after the speech made by the General Secretary, the US State Department, through a department spokesman, Ned Price, dismissed the concept, expressing that Beijing was simply, quote, parroting Russian security ideas amid the war in Ukraine, end quote. Part 3 of today's episode, we're going to look at Chinese economic and financial developments, particularly increasingly pessimistic views of many banks and economists about how China's economy will grow this year. But first, as always, guys, if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit the like button. It does help the channel. And for anyone who wants to go the extra mile and help keep this channel sustainable, and help transition to a more sustainable model for the channel, my Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and crypto links are below. As always, thank you very much, everybody, for all your support. In just a matter of days, we are seeing yet more cuts to Chinese GDP forecasts as economists grow increasingly concerned that lockdowns are going to spread and stay in place. In a research note on Thursday, Nomura Holdings Inc. cut its full-year economic growth forecast for China to 3.9% from 4.3%, citing disruption caused by Beijing's pursuit of zero-COVID strategy. With 2020, this would be one of the worst performances for the country since 1991. We remember that in 2020, the economy only grew by 2.2% due to lockdowns in Wuhan and surrounding Hubei. In the same note, they also cut China's Q2 growth forecast to 1.8% from 3.4%. According to Nomura's economists, the GDP downgrade was due to, quote, rapidly worsening high-frequency data for April and logistics problems as a growing number of cities fully or partially locked down to contain the virus, end quote. That achieving zero COVID is now, quote, way more costly and difficult, end quote, and that consumers and factories are exhausted after years of disruptions living through the pandemic. Logistics in the megacity of Shanghai continue to be hit hard. According to an index published by data provider Wind Information, daily truck volumes moving through Shanghai were down 70% earlier this week, compared with the end of March prior to the lockdown. The Nomura note concludes by observing that the tool for improving the economic outlook for the country is not monetary or fiscal, but rather political. Quote, adjustments to the zero-COVID strategy are key to a growth recovery in coming months. Beijing officials continue to insist this week that the collapse in consumption, which we saw in March's data, which was released on Monday and which we covered at the time, and that will no doubt worsen in April, is only a temporary matter. On Thursday, for example, a spokeswoman from the National Development and Reform Commission expressed that China's economic development is, quote, so resilient that the fundamentals for long-term growth have not changed, end quote. Supply may well recover with strong supply-side support, credit easing and fiscal spending. However, demand has remained stubborn for years now. It's hard to think that even if everything went back to normal, that this demand would somehow reach pre-pandemic levels within a short period of time. Indeed, before the latest round of lockdowns, retail spending, a good proxy for consumption, had yet to return to pre-2020 or pre-pandemic levels, and even then, demand was weak. Next up, we have new official data this week for the tourism industry, and surprise, surprise, it's not doing very well. Indeed, the industry was already struggling over the last 2 years due to the drop in consumption that we just discussed above, and a general aversion from traveling, even within the country, and in some cases, even within one's own province. Then the downturn worsened in recent months as the Omicron variant took hold. The industry is quite important too. Tourism, which includes travel, accommodation, and catering, contributed 11.05% to China's gross domestic product in 2019, and supported nearly 80 million jobs, or 10% of all employment. What's important to note too is that this industry, tourism, has traditionally been a huge source of revenue for some of China's poorest regions, and an effective mechanism for transferring wealth from wealthier Chinese households to poorer regions through tourism spending. One economist speaking to Chinese financial media expressed that the tourism downturn this year will likely remove at least 0.5 percentage points from China's 2022 GDP growth, but it will also fall disproportionately on poorer regions. For example, during the recent tomb sweeping holiday in early April, official data shows that Hohhot, capital of the northern Chinese region of Inner Mongolia, saw tourism revenue fall 53.5%, and trips to Sanya, China's answer to Hawaii, sporting beautiful beaches and forest walks, collapsed over that tomb sweeping holiday period an incredible 99.4%. And one last thing while we're on the economy and financial updates, this week on Wednesday, the British Chamber of Commerce in China published its latest British Business in China COVID-19 Impact Report. Among many findings, the report warns that for the upcoming 2022-2023 school year, forecasts indicate an estimated turnover rate of at least 40% among teachers in international schools. The report goes so far as to warn that international schools across China may not survive the loss of teachers resulting from lockdowns and strict COVID-19 measures that are driving away foreign talent, expressing, quote, "Should they not be replaced, international families will be forced to relocate to ensure continued education for their children, while those considering moving to China will look elsewhere." End quote. Hey guys, I'd love to hear what you thought about some of the updates we covered in today's episode, so throw your comments below. Always love hearing from you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.